everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us today. We've got an epic show ahead, but just remember, if any of you have experiences you'd like to share, I'd love to hear from you. You can either email me at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com or head over to paranormalportal.net and scroll down and find the button that says Interview Me, and that'll allow you to look at a calendar of possible times and dates and find a date that works for you. Love to hear your stories, so definitely get in touch with me. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Portal podcast. So thrilled you guys are here with me as we dive into yet again another fantastic episode. A special thank you for all the love and support, and thank you to those of you who continue to let other people know about the Paranormal Portal. I truly appreciate it. And we've got a phenomenal show lined up for you guys today. We are joined by Lance from Idaho, who's here to share his incredible experiences and terrifying experiences dealing with some pretty aggressive spiritual experiences. So we're going to dive into that now. Buckle up. We're going in. Hey, Lance, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for coming on.
You bet. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. I'm thrilled that you're here. You and I met at a conference, and we had a great discussion, and I'm glad that you agreed to come on the show, because I think it's an incredibly brave thing for anybody to come forward and say, look, this is what I've seen. This is what I've experienced. And I'm really thrilled that you decided to come and do this for a lot of different reasons, not just because I have a show and this is content, but because everybody sees these experiences uniquely and through their own lens. And I always end up learning something about the phenomena from everybody I talk to. So I really appreciate it.
You bet.
All right.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to open up when I've only let a few people know about it, but it's been going on long enough. And when I saw you there, I just figured, why not go talk to somebody and see what you had to say. So thank you for listening too.
Oh yeah. It really is my pleasure. I just so you know, and just so everybody out there knows, not everybody that reaches out to me wants to be on the show and wants to talk to me. I talk to several experiencers just through emails and messages about what they experienced, just to help them try to understand and to try to help them. Does that make sense? I don't know. It does now, but I really am, my heart goes out to people that are having experiences. And if I can be helpful in that process, that's amazing. So it's my pleasure. So can we kind of start, I guess, with my one canned question. And that is, where did this start for you? When did you start having experiences?
It began about 8 or 9 years ago. I was on an elk hunt here in Idaho. I was by myself, and I'd gone out and I'd found a wallow place where the elk go and cool themselves off. And so I thought I'd build a ground blind there. It's kind of mid-morning. So I go build this ground blind, I get everything set, and I knew it'd be a while before any action might happen. So I just threw my backpack back behind me and kind of laid down on the ground, had my legs kind of up a little bit. And I'm just sitting there listening to nature. And pretty soon I started feeling something like touching my leg, the bottom of by my feet, kind of crawling up my legs. And I actually thought that I disturbed an ant pile. And so I sat up and I'm lifting my pant legs up and everything. There was nothing there. So just kind of let it go. And then sitting there, and pretty soon I could feel fingers touching my legs, and they started working their way up my legs. And I stood up and was like kicking around just to say, knock it off, whatever it is, just cut it out. And so I'm sitting there just trying to figure it out, but that's where it started. I felt that, and then it it was there a while, and then it went away. So then that night after the hunt was over, I went home and I jumped in a shower, and I started hearing knocking on the wall right next to me. And of course, I just put it off to maybe it's water pipes. I just moved into the home not that long ago, and it was an older home, so I thought, well, maybe it's just the water pipes knocking. And then it kept knocking, and so I ignored it, showered, and I start walking down the hallway to my bedroom, and a knock started to follow me down the hallway to my bedroom. And then I just got undressed or dressed and got into bed. And then that's when, kind of all hell broke loose, pretty much.
Wow.
I'm sitting there and I felt rustling at the bottom of my bed, like people are kneeling, walking on their knees around my bed. And then on my left foot, this was the weirdest thing. On my left foot, it felt like a knife or a sharp fingernail just started circling my heel on my left foot. And it just would keep doing that and keep doing it. And at first it was just irritating, but pretty soon it started to hurt, like it was like cutting in. And I was kicking at it, telling it, cut it out. Just you guys go away and stuff. But just stuff like that just started happening throughout the night. And then consecutive nights after that, the same thing started happening. So
Did you know right away, look, this doesn't, I mean, obviously it's an unusual experience, but did you understand right away that you were dealing with something probably spiritual, or what did you think at that time?
Yeah, I figured it must have been something like that because, like when I was young, I'd hear things like scratching on my pillows and stuff, and I had in Idaho you have mice, a lot of mice, and I just figured it was like mice in the wall scratching or something. And I had a lot of just odd things like that, maybe seeing some shadows and stuff when you're a little kid, but you just put it off to your childish imaginations, But this was so real, and the touches were so real that there couldn't have been any other explanation. There weren't people in the house with me, and so I figured that's what it was.
So do you think this actually may have started much younger for you, but this was just a point of transition when you were hunting? Or do you think that perhaps you brought something back with you from hunting?
I think it had been with me pretty much the whole time. They just decided we're going to let him know now that we're here,
Oh.
I'd been recently divorced for 2 years, and I'd moved away to a smaller town by myself, which can be a mistake,
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, it really went crazy after that because I hated my heel after about a week of that with the fingernail or whatever going around my heel. My left heel started drying out and cracking really bad. It would bleed. I mean, it hurt to walk on it and stuff. And so I was kicking at it, and I'm calling them dirty names and stuff and just saying, just leave me alone,
Yeah.
I don't know why you're doing this to me. And then that's when I think I told you about this at the conference. I felt real heavy knees on my bed, like a lot heavier than any of the other ones had been. And I'm just laying there, and I could feel knees coming up each side of me, pressing into the bed. And then I felt hands grab my shoulder, and then just a headbutt just come down onto my head. It made me see stars. I mean, it felt physical.
So you actually felt the impact of like
I felt it. Yeah.
another head hitting you.
It stunned me a little bit.
Oh my
But
God.
and the only audible word I've ever heard from them in all these years, I said, "Who the heck are you?" And he said, "Demon." That was the only word that he said. He said, "Demon." And it sounded robotic, almost like the old computers when you type a word in and it would read the word back to you,
Right.
And so then you get the chills up your spine and you start freaking out. But yeah, the fear, the anger, because I couldn't fight back. I mean, I was kicking and punching, but it wasn't doing a whole lot,
Right.
And then they would just keep you up
Yeah.
all night long. I mean, I might get maybe an hour's sleep is all, and you wake up to them touching you and doing things. So
Yeah.
it
Yeah,
was pretty rough.
that's horrible, and that's very indicative of potential demonic attacks. And I can't speak with any authority and go, yep, you were definitely dealing with a demon, because even if you hear that word, it's like, well, is it being honest that it's actually a demon, or is it just something evil that's trying to make you afraid? So it uses
Yeah.
that term because, of course, that is a scary term. But what you're describing is incredibly consistent with a lot of oppressions and potential possessions, in that demons don't come out and say, I'm a demon, right from the get-go. They do this war of attrition. They wear down the person. A lot of times it's this dark cloud over their people's heads, like where they always feel like they just can't get into the sunshine, like they're always in this haze of sorrow or pain or anguish or anger. And it's just, I think it's very strategic, but it's just meant to wear someone down so that they can't resist, and eventually, could turn into a possession, which is absolutely horrifying. But, and there's no telling that that's what you're experiencing, but that sounds very consistent to a lot of demonic oppression and infestation stories, where they don't want you to get comfortable. They don't want you to get relaxed or to revive or rejuvenate. They want to wear you down.
Yeah. I noticed that because the more tired you are, the more weak you are, and so then they're even more prevalent all the time. But
Right.
I'm from a religious family, and I talked to my brothers who were kind of in positions in the religion.
Mm-hmm.
And because I just didn't know what to do, because it was getting to the point where I just thought I'd be better off not ever having to deal with this again,
Right.
And I didn't want to be that way. I'm probably the most sane person that I know. I just try to look at things logically and stuff, but I just didn't know how to fight it. It was just me against everything that was attacking me.
Right.
So I asked my brothers, or I just talked to him, and he said, well, we'll have a fast
Mm-hmm.
for you. And he got my family to do a fast for me. And when they did it, nothing stopped. But the way that I approached things flipped, 180 degrees. I started thinking, just try to understand it, use your mind and try to outthink it, whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
and it really did make a difference. It's like I said, the fingernail thing kept going on, but instead of kicking at it and calling it names, I just started talking to it. Just like I'm talking to you, I just talk out loud. And so I would ask questions. I'd say, well, I can feel your hands, so just like squeeze my left toe for a yes or my right toe for a no. And so I just ask questions like, are you a person? Are you male or a female? And then, I just kind of get more personal with them and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the worst things stop, or at least slowed down some.
Mm-hmm.
And they became a little bit more personable rather than like angry, whatever they were towards me.
Right.
So, and that at least helped me get some sleep. I mean, they're kind of letting me sleep some. And
sure. Did you get answers? Did you get male, female? Did you get any responses to those questions? Yeah. Is that something
you can tell the difference easily now? I mean,
really? Okay.
Yeah, from them. But then I wasn't really seeing them, other than there was one solid black figure that I could see his outline.
Mm-hmm.
And he would always come and stand in the doorway. I didn't know if he was the one that had headbutt me or what. The others would still be around the bed and still doing their touchy-feely stuff. But
right.
He would just kind of stand out there and just kind of observe, it seemed like. And he was there. He would show up every night for probably maybe a month or two.
Uh-huh.
And then he went away. I haven't ever seen him again since then. So, but I have noticed, I was listening to your podcast. I've never listened to a podcast before. Uh-huh. And I just kind of wanted to know what to expect. So I put one of yours on, and it's one where you talked about ghosts, I think,
sure,
in first part of this month or something.
Mm-hmm.
And you're talking about these shadow figures and stuff. And,
Yeah.
and I've seen those. They almost look like wisps of smoke because they don't really take a form, or they weren't at the beginning. And I'd see them and I could feel them almost like a cloud as they're coming up, or an energy, you know, as they're coming up over you and stuff. But, yeah, I don't attribute them. I know you said that, what did you call them? The native people or whatever said that they could be good things, but
Yeah.
they never seemed good to me, any of the ones that I
Sure.
did. So,
And that's most people's experience with them. I just like that there was this other idea about
Yeah.
what their function is, you know, and that maybe they're not wonderful, but they do serve a purpose in cleansing areas. Interestingly enough, after you had this fast and you noticed that things changed, is that when you started to see the shadow people?
I had kind of noticed the wispiness,
Okay.
just at times, like I could notice them.
But before that intervention?
But yeah, I don't know. You know, maybe it was after that. It's been so long ago,
Sure.
I can't really place exactly when everything was going.
Sure.
But maybe it was after that.
Yeah, and maybe that's, you know, I mean, just to address that, maybe that was them showing up to cleanse the dark things that were really tormenting you, and then
Yeah.
you were left with the more benign things because they weren't really negative. I don't know. I mean, I'm just again, I'm just throwing
The reason I
ideas.
said that's because the way they touch, they weren't touching in a friendly way. You know?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that's amazing, and it must have been incredibly frightening. Were you feeling frightened during this, or was it more like, oh, here we go again, or what was your state of mind?
Yeah, at first I was scared. When I heard the word demon, you get those chills that
Oh,
just
yeah.
completely shoot through your body like
Right.
rockets, you know?
Yep.
And I was really scared and nervous, but after that fast, my mind started thinking, you being afraid or you being angry or whatever is probably feeding them.
Yeah.
So just be more even keeled about everything. And I've tried to do that. They still, like at the beginning, I would have dreams. Like if I was, especially after I was trying to be more even keeled, so they'd go into my dreams. But I remember this one dream. I'm driving up this road and it's just a steep mountain on my left side, and it's just like hundreds of foot drop on my right side. And there's rattlesnakes like dropping off of the hillside, and I hate snakes. I can't stand snakes. And there's just rattlesnakes dropping off, and they're in the road. Well, one hit the car or something, and I looked at it, and my tire ran off the edge. So I'm like, the car is teetering. I can't do anything, and it may go over the edge. So what are my options? Jump out of the car and deal with the snakes all the way up and down as they're dropping, or fall over the edge, you know? I just remember just that helpless feeling. And then I woke up and I could hear them laughing at me about that they, you know, were causing me that way now, because they're going to the dreams rather than trying to hit you in an awake state. So
yeah, that's you know, and I do think that's probably the most common interaction with spiritual entities is probably in our dreams. You know, that neither they can influence and enter them just because they're energetic, and our dreams, I think, are energetic as well, or that maybe that's when our minds are the easiest to make contact with. We're not distracted by the everyday stuff, you know, this noise that we live in, this, you know, hyper stimulated existence that we have, that, you know, when we're sleeping, we're probably much more wide open to perceive those things. So yeah, I've had plenty of dreams with spiritual things, some wonderful and some not so wonderful. So I can totally empathize with what you're saying.
yeah, that's the one thing another thing that I really learned with the mind flip is watch your thoughts, because, and I 100% believe this, that 80% of the thoughts we have don't originate with us. I think it's them putting thoughts into our mind, because even if they can get you to believe or think a certain way, then they can kind of drag your thinking to whichever direction they want it to go. And that I talked to you a little bit about that. That's one thing that made me nervous about maybe doing a podcast. I don't want people thinking, oh, well, is this real? Is it not? And then going and trying to do something. If I ever opened a door for somebody because of what I'm talking to you about right now, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy what I've gone through.
Yeah, absolutely. And certainly, I agree that, anytime you're dealing with spiritual, powers or energies or whatever, I mean, you have to be incredibly careful. You got to be incredibly, I think you got to be incredibly informed personally. Like, as we were talking before recording, I think that, there's such an influx of like, spirit and ghost hunting shows and stuff. And so it makes it look like it's almost the latest reality craze. Like, oh, well, I'm going to go check out this old asylum or this graveyard or whatever. And it's like, yeah, and maybe 90% of the time that's fine and nothing really big will happen. But if you end up dragging something home with you, you could be in a world of trouble, or someone you love could be. You could be dragging things into your home, and maybe it doesn't target you. Maybe it targets something you love. And, I mean, that is certainly understated a lot in the paranormal is the risk that you expose yourself to when you go out there and look, So I agree, and I appreciate that cautionary statement, and I think it can't be stated enough that, we don't understand what this stuff is and what the ramifications of it could be. So, just be extraordinarily careful,
Yeah, that's why I haven't really talked about, even with my kids, I don't want to open anything there. I don't want to with my brothers.
Yeah.
And I've actually never had another relationship since my divorce, since this stuff started happening, because I don't want it to affect someone that I would care about that way too,
Oh, yeah.
But I'm just it has kind of singled me out because I don't know, keep away from pretty much everyone and everything just to protect them,
Well, I think that's incredibly noble, to be honest with you, that says so much about your compassion and caring, that you're like, I've been dealing with this for 9 years. I wouldn't ask anybody to go through this with me. I mean, and you're right. But maybe love would be a very healing thing for you too. I don't know, because love can be incredibly empowering, and certainly if these things are dark and negative, probably the last thing they want you to do is to feel love, so
yeah,
maybe it would be the opposite, but I really respect your rationale for it. It's like, you have so much caring and compassion that you couldn't imagine making someone you love deal with this with you. And that's incredibly noble.
Yeah, it's a scary thought.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially that I brought it on, and I would never want to do that, but
yeah,
and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I truly mean it. It's it is a consideration for sure. And I respect that you make that consideration. And I think you'll find your way through this, eventually all the way, and then you'll be ready for that even more. But, it's certainly not an easy journey.
Yeah. Well, I agree with that. Yeah, I've I guess mellowed out would be about as good a phrase as anything since then. I just kind of take it as it comes. Weird as this may sound, I've gotten to know some of them, and they like to play good cop, bad cop. I've noticed.
Yeah,
but it gets you to be chummy here to kind of open you up for this other stuff. But they still let you know what they can do. I just a couple months ago, I went float tubing, and normally I go with one of my brothers. When I go float tubing is when you just get in a tube and you're fly fishing off the tube. And I went to a lake, and it was in the middle of the week. So there just weren't that many people, and it's a huge lake. And I'm float tubing out there, and I'd had a pretty good day. It just started getting hot, and I wanted to go get a drink. So I'm kicking back, and it's a deep lake. And I was probably maybe 100 yards off the shore. and I'm kicking back, and it was, I don't know, maybe 20 foot deep there, but I felt a hand reach in and it shoved between my rib cage.
Oh,
Like I could feel it go in, and then it just started to close. The hand started to close, and it was like, it felt like it was cracking my ribs, and it hurt so bad I thought I was going to pass out, and I didn't know what to do because these float tubes, you're only on a seat, maybe 10, 12-inch seat is all. And if I'd have passed out, I'd have probably flopped right over the front or over the edge or flipped it and drowned out there. But that hand just kept tightening and tightening, and it was so bad I was starting to dry heave. It just, the pain was just excruciating, and I just leaned back and was kicking the shore just as fast as I could kick, thinking, well, at least maybe I can fall in some shallower water or something. But as soon as I got back to the shallow enough water where it was only maybe a foot or two deep, then felt the fist release and the hand pull out of it and stuff. And so I don't know if they're trying to actually kill me there to make me pass out, because I should have. The pain was that bad that I should have. I've had kidney stones. They're horrible, and it wasn't anything compared to what this felt like.
oh, geez.
But I don't know if they just let me know now and then, we can still get to you if we feel like it. So
Yeah, that's pretty horrible. Yeah, because you're already in a incredibly vulnerable state. I mean, we're not really good on the water. As far as I mean, we're good on land, but water is definitely a tough place for us to be in, especially to have trouble. We need air, and there isn't a lot of air under there. So, geez, that's so diabolical, though, isn't it?
yeah, and that's what I say, that they'll be decent. Mm-hmm. I'll deal with them for several months, but it just seems like every now and then, I was telling you about maybe a couple weeks after that happened, I was laying there in bed and my left thigh itched. So I reached down just to kind of scratch it. And as soon as my hand touched it, it just started burning really bad. And so I got out and looked, and I had about a 5-inch bloody scratch going the opposite way of what I was touching. It was just a scratch all the way up my leg. And normally I heal pretty quick. I thought, well, maybe I just caught it on something. Yeah. But a couple of weeks, but that's been several months ago, and I've still got 3 inches of scar left on my leg from that scratch mark. So,
yikes! Yeah, I mean that's crossing a pretty scary line when they start, putting wounds on you. I mean that to me is really pretty concerning, and I don't. I can't say for sure what you're dealing with, but it does seem incredibly diabolical. Yeah. So do you feel that by talking and addressing it that way, that it's maybe emboldened it a little more too? Or do you feel that it's, I know you said that it seems to have helped overall, but do you think that's just the long game?
Yeah, I think they just let me know. Yeah, we'll be friendly, but it's still on our terms. You know what I mean? It's not really that I'm controlling anything. Uh-huh. I may be friendlier with them and try to talk nice and stuff like that, but it's still what they're going to do is what they're going to do. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's just as I'm listening to you, I'm trying to figure. And again, I'm no expert, but it's like, is this strengthening that, because I think that in a lot of cases, spirits need permission. Like things start out kind of subtle. And a lot of times that permission is kind of implied when it's the person experiencing fear, because fear is a surrender. Now, I'm not saying you can't be startled. Everybody's startled. But when you experience and become afraid of something, you're acknowledging its power over you. And I think that maybe weakens our energy or aura or protection or whatever. And so I wonder about the communication, whether that's giving further permission, because you're actually
whether it's healthy or not.
Right. And I'm not, I know you're doing the best you can with some impossible situations. So I'm not being...
I'm learning as I go with this.
Yeah.
With this thing for sure. But I I felt that same way that what you're talking about. I thought just ignore them. Just see
Mm-hmm.
if you can totally ignore them, even though you feel them. You know, everything. Just ignore them. And for 2 full months, I ignored them, and it got so bad at the end of the second month, you could feel their hand going down your throat when you try to sleep. You know, I'm laying there in bed trying to sleep, and it's like you can't breathe. They're grabbing onto your lungs. They're just brutal. I don't know. They're fighting pretty well to keep me
Yeah.
with them, but maybe I should just live with it and either live with it or die with it. You know, because I kind of feel that that's my options. So
Well, I think maybe, honestly, and this is again me on the outside looking in, is that I think you've done a Herculean job dealing with on your own for quite a while. But I think that you may need some assistance or someone that can come in and cleanse this out and kick it out. I mean, we we do have a certain amount of providence. Even in that situation, you would be involved in that process, not just as like a patient. I'm not speaking like an exorcism because I don't think that you're possessed. Yeah. I just think that you've either dealing with direct oppression or you're dealing with some pretty sinister attachments in any case, and there are people that will help you break those connections and cast them out, and then you learn how to. And I'm not trying to speak in any specifics because again, I think individual faith and belief is important in this stuff, but it's you can only do so much on your own until maybe it's time to find some assistance, some help in whatever that means to you. And I certainly would encourage that it was from your faith, because I think that's what makes it more powerful to you than anything. But, there are, certainly dozens of different modalities of dealing with this out there, from shamanism to, esoteric practices to different denominational observations and approaches to, sounds, scents, crystals, any number of things that people follow to do, to get rid of these negative attachments. So, it is concerning because, 9 years is a hell of a long time,
yeah, yeah. I took it to my church. Actually, my brother did. I didn't because I'm just a private person. But one of my brothers did, and I went and met with one of the leaders, and they're like, "Yeah, we'll get this taken care of. We'll do it." And they're talking about going and seeing psychologists and all this other kind of stuff. And I'm like, if that's what you want, I'll do it.
Yeah.
So then I went and they gave me the numbers of the psychologist. Well, they're 4 months out.
Oh, yeah.
To even see anybody. And I thought it's kind of weird because if somebody, the way I was feeling before the fast, if you told me 4 months out, I'd have been dead before that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden they just kind of turned their backs on me. The church did. And so, and I'm a religious person. I don't blame God for something a man does, even if he's supposedly one of the leaders of the church, but and maybe it's just me, but I just kind of lost any faith in any type of faith as far as that stuff kind of goes. I just figured if God wants me to deal with it, I'll deal with it. And when he's tired of me dealing with it, maybe he'll step in and stop it.
Well, no, I think that's powerful too. And I know what you mean. I mean, ultimately churches are run by people, and that includes all of the character flaws that people have. And certainly, I don't know, it's got to be incredibly disappointing, but
it was,
and I'm so sorry that that's your experience because that's certainly not fair. I do know that, generally speaking, many observations religiously will also do the psychology thing just because, before they acknowledge that something is truly spiritual, they got to, they may not know you on a personal level. So it's like, well, is this really what's happening, or is there other issues going on? So, it's a very common practice that they have people screened by those mental health professionals, and a lot of times some of them come up with other issues, and then they can help deal with that in a medicinal way or a therapeutic way. But those that can't, then they can go forward with the other interventions religiously. But yeah, that's so disappointing because you need help. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
well, I kind of trust myself more than I trust anyone else at this point. I know
fair
that
enough.
sounds arrogant.
No.
But,
Well, given your experiences, it makes perfect sense, actually. I'm just really impressed with your fortitude, your personal fortitude, because the one thing that I do really believe I know about these dark things, and I mean, demons or other sinister, presences, they have nothing but time, and they're very, very, very good at what they do. So the fact that you've persevered for 9 years in light of all this stuff is incredibly impressive, and that's a hell of a feat for any one person to accomplish all by themselves.
Yeah, it almost didn't last 9 weeks. I was
Yeah,
right on the cusp of it, and like I said, but yeah, it's not only that they've got all their time. I mean, they've had thousands of years to improve their craft to be pretty good at what they do, but
Yeah.
there's also plenty of them. So
How many do you think you may be dealing with? Have you found a
I
number?
started studying. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
I kind of was studying that and looking into it. And if you look at it from the spiritual aspect, I mean, if you believe that like a third of the host of heaven followed Satan, when he came down, they figure there's about 120 million people from the beginning of the earth till whenever is what numbers that I came up with from studying it. So that's putting them at anywhere from 40 to 60 billion people. So that's an awful lot of people to try to fight against. I mean, they can put quite a few to each person on earth and
Sure.
keep after you. So I'm just happy. You hear about people that laugh about this stuff and you're an idiot and all this kind of stuff. And at first I was like, don't cast your pearls before swine, kind of thing.
Absolutely.
But now, I mean, that was towards the beginning, but now I'm happy for them. I think stay as innocent and naive as you possibly can, because it's not worth not hitting that other side of it. It's just
That's a good point. There's the old saying, ignorance is bliss. And that's certainly true. In the case of this stuff, I mean, it's nice to just look at the world in this, very rudimentary way. And that's the extent of your concerns with it. That's pretty profound way to live if you can pull it off. But yeah, I mean, for many of us, we didn't have that luxury because these other things found us. And, I mean, I am, again, I'm never like trying to say that all this stuff is negative. I've had some incredibly beautiful spiritual experiences and, and visitations and such, and that were incredibly healing and cathartic for me. But I'm well aware of the dark things too. And the price that takes on you and the toll that it takes on you. So yeah, that's the other side of it. But you're right. And how many do you think you are personally dealing with? I mean, when you say they, do you have an idea?
I've asked them, and you don't know whether they're lying or not, but they'll do certain things to me that you film, and I've counted up to 50 and 100 of them that,
okay,
one time, but I don't know. I mean, there could be 4 or 5. I don't think that they are allowed to go in one, because I kind of preach to them a little bit. That's one of the things that I do. It's not like, I don't know, it's not like preach, but I just kind of talk to them about it and say, why don't you grow up? We didn't do anything to you.
Right.
I didn't do anything to you personally. So
Right.
I don't know, if you just grow up a little bit, you're thousands of years old, it's time to pull on your big boy panties and, move forward.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so I honestly don't think that they're allowed in just groups of one or two, because I think you could probably talk some sense into one or two.
Oh,
But
interesting.
I think they're all there to feed the fire. I call them a school of sardines. I said, you're all a
Ah.
bunch of school of sardines with your heads up each other's butts, so you can't think. You just swim around and annoy people. So,
Yeah.
but now you know I get attacked a lot.
You son of a, what did you call me?
Yeah.
Well, it's made us fair enough, and I think that that's actually a pretty good defense is to empower yourself that way, because again, fear is a surrender. But if you're claiming your space, if you're I'm not so sure that directly challenging them is always a good thing, because if they are demonic, you're dealing with a principality. You're dealing with an incredibly potent force that is, again, it's a master at what it does, and it has nothing but time, and it'll make a lifetime hobby out of you, just waiting for you to slip, And so, but I think to just continue to cast it away, and keep what's the word I'm trying to say? Like claiming your sovereignty. Like they don't have a right to do this. They don't have your permission to do this. They have to stop. And then imbue it with prayer, with your religious ideals of the divine, and that you are under divine providence and protection. I think is incredibly powerful. And those statements may take some time, because again, you're dealing with 9 years of this. So, it's kind of like a bad rash. You don't just apply the ointment once. You got to continue to apply it and kind of sour the experience. And so they, maybe they'll just go somewhere else, look for someone else, but I
haven't lost faith in God. I just kind of lost faith in man a little bit.
Fair enough. Yeah. Fair enough. And when you're kind of dealing with, something like this should be the purview of these churches, because they are our spiritual leaders. They're supposed to be guides towards understanding the divine and bringing that and manifesting that into our lives. But, and one of my biggest complaints is that I don't think a lot of our maybe modern view of religion, it's like a history lesson rather than bringing the living God into your life and manifesting that and celebrating that. Yeah. It's all this, archaeology and ancient past. And I think that we can certainly learn from that, and there's merit in that, but that's not the wholeness of what, the presence of God in our lives should be,
Yeah. I wonder too, if it just doesn't scare them. They're still human, the people you're dealing with,
Sure.
Whether they're church members or not, but they're still human. And anytime I talk to even my brothers, when I first was talking about it, I could just kind of see the pull back a little bit, and what happened to him,
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great point too, because, just because they're in a religious station doesn't mean that they're incredibly spiritually adept or aware, and
they're still human.
Right. They're, this stuff creates an entirely different level of awareness. And, you have to acknowledge that this is a whole lot bigger all of a sudden. And I think that these people, these human beings in these religious stations, they kind of like the idea that this is reality. It's the box too, because then the path seems clear to them, and there's the ignorance is bliss. So when you bring in this stuff, and certainly the Bible and many religious texts talk about this fact that there's evil around, and they should be prepared to deal with that in their station. But I think you're absolutely right. I think largely they're not. Most of them aren't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I deal with them on a daily basis, I tell them, listen, this body's mine. I chose to have it. It's my body.
Good for you.
You chose not to have a body. You chose to remain a spirit. So you have no right to what's in here. I said, I can't say anything about all the space around me. I don't own it, but I do own this body. And so you have no right to have what's inside the body. It's mine.
Sure. Absolutely.
And that's kind of how I deal with them every day. And
Yeah.
it annoys them, but
Well, it is the truth. And I would, again, do what you feel is right, because again, you're the one that's going through this. I'm not going through it, but I would even suggest expanding that and saying, this is my home. This is my space. I own it. This is my right. And this is my providence. And it's, this is not your space. You're not allowed here. You must leave. And, you'll probably get some tantrums and stuff, but maybe eventually that'll help to expand your providence over your area.
Well, I appreciate it. I'll try that.
Yeah.
Can't hurt.
Well,
it could.
I hope not.
It could, but
I hope I'm not giving you bad advice.
I felt the hurt before. So,
Yeah.
That's what I say. I'll either live through it or I'll die through it. Kind of the only two choices I got. So
yeah, and I'm so sorry that this has been your experience, because it's certainly not fair. But at the same point, I know that your strength is truly inspiring in a lot of ways, because here you are, a person that's been wrestling with this. And I didn't mean to say wrestling like I was from the South. It just came out that way.
Been doing that too.
But I think that it speaks volumes about the strength of your character, the strength of your heart, and the strength of your courage to continue forward, even in this, diabolical opposition. So, I'm certainly, willing to be a part of your solution if you need my help, or if you'd like my help, or if you'd like some ideas or avenues to pursue. I have a pretty diverse community around me and some wonderful, wonderful people. But, I think that it may be time for you to get some help, just because, obviously you've been doing this alone for a long time, and we certainly would like to see you overcome all this and move on with your life.
I do appreciate it. It does mean a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And was there anything else you wanted to mention today?
Just as a kind of a sidebar, this may be
Sure.
a little bit off the topic a bit, but like I said, I listened to your podcast about the ghost thing.
Yeah.
And just so everybody knows, they hate being called ghosts. They like being called spirits, because they said a ghost is a totally different thing. That's not a knock on you. That's just something.
Sure.
Because I call them ghosts all the time just to irritate them when they start irritating me.
Sure.
But when I was listening to that ghost podcast of yours, when you said maybe UFOs had something to kind of do with the spiritual, and I'd kind of always felt that way too. I thought, wonder if it's not, one and the same thing. But I don't know if you've heard of the fire in the sky thing with
Sure.
From Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
My ex-wife lived in the same town that he did. She went in the same school, and her mom taught that guy. But I was hunting out there, and I was out by myself on a ridge, probably about 20 miles from where that happened to him. And it was probably maybe midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. I was just sitting in the back of my truck, and there's pine pockets, but where I was at was just like a huge, almost like a sagebrush flat type area out there. And I don't know, maybe it was a mile away or so, I saw what I thought was a helicopter coming out there, which I thought was weird at that time of night. And especially out there, because I just didn't know a helicopter would be out there unless there was a fire or something I didn't know about. But the helicopter comes in, and it stopped, but I couldn't hear anything. It's a cool, crisp night, so you'd have thought that I heard the rotors or something. But it went out there and stopped, and all of a sudden a flood beam, like a spotlight underneath it, kind of went down. And just a solid light went down to the ground. And what the heck? And I'm watching it, and all of a sudden this dome of light started growing where that light was hitting, and it would grow out and up almost at the same exact dimensions. And it did that for probably maybe 10 minutes or so.
Okay.
Until it looked like it was maybe 40, 50 feet off the ground, and then, whatever the dome of light was. Well, then that light clicked off and whatever it was turned and headed off. But that dome took probably 30, 40 minutes to dissipate. It just slowly dissipated, that dome of light. I thought, that's not I don't know what human thing could do that. So I got in my truck and I turned the radio on, and there was one local radio station playing there. And about 15 minutes later, somebody called in and said, we just saw a UFO. It just come over the top of our, so it kind of,
Wow.
At least I wasn't the only one
Right.
that saw it,
Yeah.
But to me, I kind of thought, I don't know how spiritual could do something that physical. And that's kind of what changed my mind just a little bit on, not that it couldn't still, people calling UFO sighting, or the little people sightings, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Spiritual, that could definitely be it. But this was definitely a physical thing that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
saw that.
I think, I guess what I was mostly saying in that episode is that I think these, extraterrestrial or extra dimensional beings that we experience as UFOs, I think that they can possibly come to us maybe in a non-physical way, and more like an energetic being, or they can step back and forth between maybe their reality and our reality, and so we experience those kind of like hauntings, because sometimes if you look into abduction situations and alien encounter situations, I mean, it's almost the same kind of activity between people dealing with profound hauntings and people dealing with abductions or visitations with these alien creatures. And so, but yeah, I do think that they can be physical and they can be completely rigid and three-dimensional, but I think they can apparently also be something else, and maybe we perceive that very much the same way like we perceive spirits. So maybe I wasn't totally clear in that, but that was what my point was.
No, I enjoyed your podcast.
Good.
It's the first one I ever listened to, and I listened to the whole thing. I really liked it. So,
good.
If you haven't listened to it, I would definitely listen to it, because it was enjoyable to listen to. So.
Oh, thank you, brother. I appreciate that. But yeah, I really got to commend you, Lance, for coming forward and for doing this and talking about this. I know it's not easy. Certainly, I hope it's been a good experience for you, because again, I think your story is important. Your experiences are important. And I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people out there that are going to go, oh man, can I relate with what he's saying? And it really does help a lot of people to either come forward or just come to terms a little more with what they're experiencing, because I think with a lot of this stuff, people just feel alone. You've been alone with this for a long time. So I really respect that you chose to come forward, and I'm honored that you chose to do it with my show.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm glad I met you that day, because it was just kind of a whim that I went over, because I wasn't planning on anything like that. But maybe I had a feeling, maybe something nudged me the right direction. So thank you for it.
Oh, my pleasure. And I'm here for you, brother. If I can help in any way, just reach out and we can talk, or, let me know how I can be of assistance with you, because you're not alone and you don't need to be alone. So I'm certainly willing to help in any way that I can.
Well, I do appreciate it. Just one final thought to everybody. If I could tell them anything, watch your thoughts, because I guarantee big percentage of them don't originate from you. But the way that I learned that is they were popping in. And I just thought, I'm not that type of person. Some of these thoughts that are popping in, and I think throughout my life, and I think I've never even been that way. Why would I think like that?
Yeah.
And that's their first step into kicking you in the butt and trying to drown you out in the lake. So,
amen, brother. I'm with you, and I think you're absolutely right. I think they're able to manipulate telepathically like that, and to plant ideas and thoughts, and that's part of the war of attrition that I was referencing, is that they just beat you down in so many different ways. And one of the ways is mentally, just putting those twisted ideas in your head, and things that would absolutely sicken and disgust you, and they keep doing it. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Watch your thoughts, and pay attention to your gut. Yeah, for sure. But it's been a pleasure, brother. And thank you again so much for coming on the show.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, everybody, that's going to wrap it up for us today. So hope you guys enjoyed the show, and thank you again so much for all your love and support. And remember, if you want to follow the Paranormal Portal, probably the easiest way is to head over to paranormalportal.net. And that's the homepage for the Paranormal Portal. And you'll find links to all of our different social media and sites and information about the shows, including our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/paranormalportal. Or just look for Paranormal Portal on Google or whatever search engine, and you'll find links to our social media such as Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. So we're kind of all over the place, and we're spreading as well as we can. But anyway, thank you so much for the love and support. Y'all take care, and remember, we love y'all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other, help each other out, find the magic in every day, and remember to laugh as much as you can. Until next time.